Okay, sorry about that. I am starting over because I had a little glitch. So here we are. It is 9 o'clock. It is Wednesday night, and I'm a little confused about the night only because it is such a strange week, right? Because the holidays got all messed up everybody's schedule. And so, regardless, it is Wednesday night, and here we are. Anyway, okay, I'm glad to see you guys. I hope some of our new friends join us tonight. Um, and I hope you have invited your friends to be with us here tonight for Food Addiction Fair and Firm. I'm going to be doing something a little bit different this year, actually. And this will kind of build on itself as the year progresses because I wanted to have a little bit more structure to the Food Addiction Fair and Firm program. And so, even though I'm going to have a basic outline, it's likely to change from week to week because depending on what I'm reading, I was reading an awesome thing last night about purpose. And so, of course, then I want to include that in what I'm talking about tonight. But um, all kinds of good things. So I hope you guys all had a good holiday season, a good new year. We are off to a good start in the new year. It is cold all over this country, I'm pretty sure. And so hopefully you're all snuggled in to your warm houses in your blankies and maybe have some warm tea or some warm coffee to sit down and watch us with. Speaking of tea and coffee, Dawn and I are going to get our act together a little bit tomorrow, and we are going to meet up again, but it's going to be live tomorrow evening. So we're going to be a little later than usual tomorrow. All right, so I've been posting about many roads to Rome because I was thinking about, the difference between these 12-step programs and the smart recovery programs and, of course, not wanting to step on anybody's toes or offend anybody and thinking about how I really want to approach this in a way that I believe is really going to help the most people. So tonight we're going to talk about the different roads to Rome, okay, in terms of what professional programs are out there in terms of food addiction recovery. And then I'm going to tell you how this program, Food Addiction Fair and Firm, is going to kind of proceed in light of all those different roads to Rome. Because honestly, it doesn't matter to me which road you take. And some people have a definite preference about what works for them. What I care about is your being in the process of healing from your addiction to food or healing from any other addictions. Or if you're not sure food is an addiction for you, just healing from the trouble that your relationship with food causes you. So I'm going to kind of do a quick review of the major recovery programs that are out there and tell you the differences between them, all right? Of course, I'm going to start with OA because I think that's the one most people are familiar with. Now, OA is a road to Rome. It's not the only road to Rome. And Overeaters Anonymous says really nothing about food addiction, right? It's not even specific to food addiction. And on the very front of the OA website, what it says is, and I like this, it says, no matter what your problem with food. And that's kind of where I come from. It doesn't matter if it's a food addiction, if it's a preoccupation, if it's a problem, it's a problem. And so they say no matter what your problem with food, if it's compulsive overeating, some people do have binge eating, right? If it's under eating, So when I was very active in my anorexia, I was under eating, and here it does say food addiction. So no matter what your problem with food, compulsive overeating, under eating, food addiction, anorexia, bulimia, binge eating, or over exercising, we have a solution. So Overeaters Anonymous is kind of for whatever kind of issues that you have with food, and they believe they have a solution. And how they define themselves. Overeaters Anonymous is a fellowship. A fellowship. The word we use frequently is a community. Laura Preston and I talked a lot about that when I was on live with her for Celebrate Vitamins. And we talk about the importance of the community, which is just a group of people who are like-minded and have an understanding, a visceral, internal understanding of the struggles that you go through. And so if one person is a binge eater and another person is anorexic, even though they don't have the exact same manifestations of a food problem, they still understand that there's a preoccupation and problems in their lives that are related to the problems that they have with food. So it's a collection of people, a fellowship, or in our words, a community of individuals who, through shared experience, right? We've all struggled with our relationships with food. Through our shared experience, our strength, because we have a lot of strength. We wouldn't have made it to this point in our lives if we didn't have some internal strength, right? And our hope. We all maintain hope. We are here. We are online. We support one another because we do maintain some hope, right? Are recovering from compulsive overeating or, excuse me, one of those other eating issues, right? We welcome everyone who wants to stop eating compulsively. Our primary purpose, this is OA, is to abstain from compulsive eating and compulsive food behaviors. Compulsive food behaviors can simply mean emotional eating, right? Compulsive food behaviors can mean mindless eating. It can mean bad habits like watching TV while you're eating and not paying attention to what you're eating or how much you're eating. And they say to carry the message of recovery through the 12 steps of OA to those who still suffer. So the OA program, no surprise to anybody, is a program that uses the 12 steps. And what they say about the 12 steps. The 12 steps are at the heart of the OA recovery program. They offer a new way of life, and I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. They offer a new way of life that enables the compulsive eater or the person who has a problem with food to live without the need for excessive food in whatever form that means for you, right? Their greatest importance, the 12 steps, lies in the fact that these steps work. And they say that with confidence because millions of people worldwide have benefited from the 12 steps of the various recovery programs. The 12 steps enable compulsive eaters and millions of other 12-steppers to lead happy, productive lives. They represent the foundation upon which OA is built. So when OA and all of the 12-step programs say that these 12 steps help people to live happy, productive lives, it's a way of life. And I know I have shared this with you before, but I had a good friend many years ago who was struggling with whether or not she was an alcoholic or not. And she was discussing this with her primary physician, who fortunately had the insight to understand that the 12 steps is a way of life. And he said to her, you know what? It doesn't matter if you're an alcoholic, because the 12 steps of AA or OA or any of these programs can help you live a fantastic life. It's a way of life. And so not only does OA and do all of the other 12-step programs help you with the specific issue, but they teach you how to live. And that's really, really important. So that's OA. I'm going to move on and I'm going to tell you about another 12-step program. This is a different road to Rome, but this one may, for some reason, for whatever reason, sit more near and dear to your heart. And so if this is the fellowship, or if this is one of the communities that you want to associate yourself with to help you with your struggle with food addiction, if you're like, I don't have an overeating problem, I have an absolute addiction to food. Okay, maybe this is the way you want to go and put your efforts. So what Food Addicts Anonymous say, FAA, and their website is foodaddictsanonymous.org. Here's what they say. Our mission is to offer hope. There's that word again, hope. There is hope to suffering food addicts. So our mission is to offer hope to people who suffer from food addiction. We are recovering together. You're not alone. And that's what another thing that I love about these programs. We're doing this together, one day at a time. Now listen to this. This is different than what OA says. From the biochemical disease of food addiction. Biochemical, meaning your body has a chemical reaction to food whereby you kind of get hooked and you get those cravings and you get those urges. Let me go on to say, Food Addicts Anonymous is an organization that believes that food addiction is a biochemical disorder. That means it's brain and body that occurs at a cellular level and therefore cannot be cured by willpower or by therapy alone. So that to some people is very comforting. It's like, okay, there's a biological issue here that no matter how much willpower, no matter how far I dig my heels into the ground, no matter how much therapy I get, it's not gonna treat this biochemical issue that happens when I eat foods that trigger my brain. So Food Addicts Anonymous really focuses on the biological issues of addiction. We feel that food addiction is not a moral or character issue, and I could not agree more. And I think that you guys would all agree that if you suffer from food addiction, there's nothing about your character involved. It doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you're lazy. It doesn't mean you don't care. It doesn't mean blah, 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 right? If you have a food addiction, there's nothing about it that is about your character. It's not a moral issue, just like alcoholism is not a moral character defect. This 12-step program, Food Addicts Anonymous, believes that food addiction can be managed by abstaining from, meaning eliminating, addictive foods, following a program of sound nutrition, a food plan, and working the 12 steps of the program. After we have gone through a process of withdrawal from addictive foods, many of us have experienced miraculous lifestyle changes. So this goes along with what Dr. Vera Tarman talks about in Food Junkies, that there is an absolute chemical reaction for a lot of people who have a food addiction. And it has nothing to do with character or willpower or therapy. You can't talk your way around this. You have to eliminate the foods from your system that hook you. All right? So their definition of abstinence is, here's what they say. We ask for help from our higher power. Now, a lot of people get real worked up about the 12 steps because of this higher power business. I would encourage you, if you struggle with the whole higher power thing, to give yourself permission to explore the possibility, to consider if you're not a spiritual person, or you don't believe in God, or you don't believe in, a higher power in that sense, then think of the higher power as the other people who are in your recovery community, in your fellowship, in your support groups, because a higher power just means something more powerful than myself alone. And so what they're saying is we need a group, or we need support from outside of ourselves to help us when we can't get ourselves through this. So we ask for help from our higher power to abstain from those substances we find ourselves craving. Ever mindful, so always being aware of our addiction to sugar, to flour, and to wheat. So, if you are interested in Food Addicts Anonymous, know that they are going to ask you to be very diligent and to seek help, to give up all added sugar, all white flour, and all wheat. Because what they have found is that these are the chemicals that trigger the neurochemicals in our bodies to want more, to have those cravings, to be compulsively thinking about food. All right, so feeding our bodies with a plan of sound nutrition will allow us freedom from the insanity of this disease. And the insanity of addiction. You can't think clearly, you can't, you just can't, no matter how hard you try, no matter how much willpower you have, no matter how much you tell yourself, leave it alone, you can't get away from it if you're engulfed in addiction. Okay, so we seek freedom from the insanity of this disease with honesty, and we're going to talk a lot more about honesty because we think we're being honest with ourselves, but guess what? Denial is a form of protection, right? We don't have denial to lie to ourselves or to others, but it protects us. And so we need to be willing to dig deep and have not just honesty, but rigorous honesty. And we'll talk about that more. So with honesty and an open mind and a willingness to share our experience, strength, and hope, there's those words again. And you're going to find those in all 12-step programs. And I love those words. Share our experience, our strength, and our hope. Because you have times where you're feeling good and solid and strong, and times where you're feeling like, oh God, I can't do this. So that's why, hopefully, we're not all at a weak moment at the same time, right? So that we can offer to one another some experience, strength, and hope when somebody else is having a moment like, oh God, somebody just please help me, right? Then they say, to share our experience, strength, and hope, we can recover from this disease. And here are those 12-step words again. One day at a time. Beautiful, treasured words. Stay in the day. Just work on this problem today. They say to a newcomer, this may seem like an impossible task, because it kind of does at first, right? But with the support of the membership, the fellowship, the community, one another, and by working the 12 steps of the program, we have found recovery. Hundreds of thousands of people find recovery, which means it can be done, right? Many of us have found our lives positively changed in ways that we could not have imagined. And I can tell you, from my own life experience, the 12 steps have helped me find positive changes in my life in ways I had never, ever could have imagined possible. And that's possible for you too, right? Now, Food Addicts Anonymous has a very specific food plan. So if you're the type of person, if your road to Rome makes more sense to you by having a really delineated food plan, this might be the one for you. Some people are like, oh my God, do not set me up with something that feels like chains. then this one would not be for you. But if you like knowing what to eat and when to eat it, because then you don't have to think about it, then try Food Addicts Anonymous. It might be your best road to Rome. Another 12-step program, there's all kinds of addiction and recovery 12-step programs. There's a different one that's called Food Addicts in Recovery Anonymous. Yet another one. Their website is www.foodaddicts.org. They say that they are about help for food obsession and addiction. And I like that because food addiction is, there's so much obsession, right? What am I going to eat? When am I going to eat it? How many calories? How many grams? When I was anorexic, the obsession, I think, was the absolute worst part for me. The 100% mind F, right? That I was just obsessed with thinking about food. And in a way, and I know this many, many years later, it was a way to help me maintain my sanity, truly, at that really horrible time in my life, because it protected me from thinking about things that were too much for me to think about at the time. It was a very unhealthy place. So today, I don't want or need that kind of protection. I have learned little by little over the years to deal with whatever's going on in my life without needing to numb or distract myself with that kind of obsession. But food addiction, and I like this too, this is Food Addicts in Recovery Anonymous. Food addiction can take many forms, and I believe that wholeheartedly. It says symptoms include obesity, anorexia, and bulimia. People often think of the term eating disorders when describing the disease of food addiction, but food addicts are obsessed with food, body size, and weight. So they're a little broader in scope, and they really focus in on the obsessive nature. So if you struggle a lot with the obsession of food, right? And maybe this obsession takes the form of, wanting to eat all the time or not wanting to eat all the time or wanting to purge. It can take any of those forms. Here's what else they say. We spend our days thinking about when and what we are going to eat or not eat. That was my life for way too long. Binging, purging, or dieting are a way of life. So many people that I have talked to in the 5,000 plus bariatric evaluations I have done refer to dieting as a way of life, right? And it saddens me when people have bariatric surgery and then they continue to live on that roller coaster of the next diet, the next diet, the next diet, because it's really just a way of maintaining that obsession. And that's what we want to get away from. Here's another really great statement they make. The bottom line is that we can't stop eating, right? Food Addicts in Recovery Anonymous at foodaddicts.org. So FA, or Food Addicts in Recovery Anonymous, offers relief from the symptoms of eating disorders and guidance on living in recovery. That living in recovery refers to that amazing life that you can develop by following the 12 steps, right? All right, so Food Addicts in Recovery Anonymous is international, a group of people who have experienced difficulties in life as a result of our relationship to food and eating. And that's where we're going to go in a minute, that relationship with food. We joined FA because we were obsessed with food. We have found that we need this program of recovery and the fellowship of others who share our problem in order to stop abusing ourselves with food. Music to my ears. So many of us abuse ourselves with food. And then they say, and that it helps to begin living fulfilling lives. I love that, right? Through shared experience and mutual support, we help each other to recover from the disease of food addiction. This program also is based on the 12 steps and 12 traditions of AA. So those 3 programs are all utilizing the 12 steps, okay? Another program that does not utilize this 12 steps, because not everybody appreciates this 12 steps and doesn't want to, dig into those or look into those or learn from those. And this program is called Smart Recovery. And Smart Recovery is a nationwide nonprofit organization that offers free support groups to people who desire to gain independence from any type of addictive behavior. Smart Recovery has a free internet message board, group discussions, and what they do, addictive behavior is over-involvement with substance use, is how they describe and define addictive behavior. So it can be food, alcohol, drugs, whatever kinds of substances, nicotine, caffeine, or over-involvement with activities like gambling, sex, eating, shopping, spending, relationships, whatever. We assume there are degrees of addictive behavior and that all individuals to some degree experience it. So, it's not something that is uncommon. But for some individuals, especially like those of us who are on this line tonight, the negative consequences of addictive behaviors become so great that change becomes highly desirable. So Smart Recovery differs from the 12 steps in that it's not a spiritual program, it's more of it has a scientific foundation, and it teaches increasing self-reliance rather than powerlessness. So some people don't like the powerlessness aspect of the 12 steps. So if that really turns you off, Smart Recovery may be the road to Rome for you. It really focuses on self-reliance. The meetings are discussions in which people talk to one another, with one another rather than to one another. So the meetings are a little bit different. It's more of a discussion rather than in like the 12-step meetings. It's not a discussion. It's just like people share their experience, strength, and hope, but there's not a lot of back and forth. So in Smart Recovery, there are no sponsors, and they don't like the words addict or alcoholic. Smart Recovery stands for self-management and recovery training. So that's what it stands for, self-management. I'm taking management of this. I'm going to use a support group, and we're going to use recovery training. There's a 4-point program that help all people recover from addictive behaviors and substances. So there are the 4 areas where they focus, okay, are building and maintaining motivation. I like that a lot, okay, because you need to maintain motivation to get you through that part where everybody's gung-ho and I got this and I'm on this. In the past when I've got this, I really mean it this time, I'm going to stick with it, and then the old behaviors creep back in. So Smart Recovery really focuses a lot on maintaining that motivation and teaching people to stay motivated while staying clean and sober. They teach people how to cope with urges. That's the second point that they really focus on, based on scientific research about addictions and recovery therapies. The third one is managing thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, which I absolutely love, because there's so much of recovery that's about changing your thoughts, and thoughts are connected with feelings. Thoughts and feelings are associated with behavior. So I really, really like that. And I adhere to that a lot. And living a balanced life is their 4th one. So there are a lot of similarities and there are some differences. So those are 4 options, different roads to Rome. And of course, I kind of like the one that I incorporate in addition to those, which are the four ACEs: awareness, acceptance, attitude, being accountable, having a commitment, and healing the self. Okay, so those are 5 different roads to Rome, right? So there are lots and lots and lots of roads to Rome, and there are many others, right? These aren't it by a long shot. So there are many, many more that you can look into yourself. But what we're going to do with food addiction, fair and firm, is we're going to kind of incorporate the 12 steps with SMART recovery principles, as well as the 4 ACEs. All right. I love the 12 steps. You don't have to believe in God. You don't have to be a spiritual person to understand the importance of having community. And so we are going to use the 12 steps, but we're also going to use the scientific-based principles of SMART recovery and talk a lot about the 4 ACEs. So awareness, of course, is the first step of change. And all of these roads to Rome, all of our, struggles with food are in one way or another associated or affiliated with our relationship to food. So we are going to start, and I'm going to give you homework, and I'm going to send you a worksheet, and you can complete that if you want to. And if you'd like to share that with people who aren't with us, I would encourage you to do that. And if you'd like to take these to your support groups, if you'd like to take them to other online programs that you're involved in, or if you want to use these within your home, please do, because these are going to be worksheets that are going to help you to look inside of yourself, because some of this is, as the SMART recovery says, self-reliance. We can't have other people do this for us. But what I love about the 12 steps is we need the support and courage, strength, and hope from the others along the way. So some people have a hard time thinking about their relationship with food because it doesn't make sense. But what I want you to think about is, think about your relationship with your best friend for a minute. Just think, how would you describe that? It's like, well, my best friend is somebody that I can call on anytime I have a problem. My best friend is somebody that I can truly share my fears, my ego issues, I can tell them my good things that happen in my life. I can go to them with my worries. I can, tell them when I was horrible and when I was wonderful. That's how I would describe my relationship with my best friend. How would you describe a relationship with a coworker? How would you describe a relationship with your significant other or your children or whomever? I want you to write a letter, truly. Sit down, pen and paper, or on your computer, and I want you to write a letter to food. And I'm going to give you a little bit of an outline so that you can do this, because if you're not aware of what your relationship with food is about, you're not going to know what you need to change or where you may need to get some of the needs you're getting met through food, met through other people, or met from your group. So we're going to start with awareness of your relationship with food. And then we're going to work into step 1 of the 12 steps, and we will supplement that with the SMART recovery tools and with the 4 ACEs. So we're going to give you a lot of the different roads to Rome, because whatever works for you is what you need to utilize, right? So we're going to build your toolkits, and remember that your tools are only as useful as the ones you choose to pull out and put effort into, okay? So, are you guys with me? Are we in this? Are we in this year to find more of our authentic selves, Because addiction and obsession takes us away from who we were meant to be. And some of us don't know who it is we were meant to be and are figuring it out along the way. And that's a gift, right? Because so many things in life shut down our authentic selves or take us away from our authentic selves or tell us it's not okay to be who we really are. Well, guess what? It's not only okay for you to be who you are, it is a gift and a miracle and a gift you give to yourself and others by being who you really are. And I want us to share who we really are with one another so we can help each other live fully, right? Say what we need to say, but say it in appropriate ways. You know, have the courage to speak our mind when we need to speak our mind and not worry that somebody else might be upset or disappointed or angry with us because we're being true to ourselves. We're not going to be, egomaniacs or, the world has to run our way. But we're going to say, this is what I need for me. You don't have to give it to me. I can't expect that or require that of you. But if I'm going to engage in relationship with you, I need honesty. I need us both to speak our minds, whatever it is. And we'll deal with thousands of examples of this over the next many, many, many more weeks because there's never an end to healing from addiction, right? Now, I am going to strongly encourage you to really become aware of those foods that may trigger you, whether it's an emotional trigger into obsession with food, or really come to grips with, do you have a biochemical addiction to sugar, to flour, to wheat, those things that can take your brain hostage and I don't want to say can't, but makes it almost impossible to make healthy decisions. Because if that is the case for you, then you really are going to have to look long and hard at being abstinent. I absolutely encourage abstinence for those who have an addiction. And that's my stand. You're going to have to figure it out for yourself, right? It's not up to me to make decisions for you or to dictate to you what roads to choose or how to go about this. I'm just going to offer you what's available out there, and I will share my experience, strength, and hope with you in the coming weeks. I thank you beyond words for taking the time to put this effort into your recovery, your healing, your learning who your authentic self is, and making the effort to live fully a beautiful, joyful, peaceful, non-obsessed life, because food ain't worth it. Food is not what it's about. Life is about our connections, right? And we want to connect first and foremost with our higher power, our spiritual being, if that's part of our choosing, with ourselves and with one another, because that's what life is about, my friends. Okay, so onward and forward. I can hardly stand it. I'm so excited about this year, and I want you to be excited about it too, and are working together. And remember, this day and every day, it's your health, your choices, and we will be there with each other each step of the way to hold hands with a hug and a whisper and a swift kick in the rear if you need that too. All right, make it a great one and stay in the day. This is a one day at a time ordeal, okay? So thanks for sharing this time with me, a little extra tonight. If you're not on the email list, because I'm going to email these worksheets out to you every week. So if you're not on there, let me know or go to my website, www.conniestapletonphd.com. The very bottom of the homepage. Just sign up and you'll get the emails, okay? Many, many thanks to you. Much gratitude. And I will be seeing you online. All right, take care.